Hello, my name is Brad Carter, local chef based in Birmingham. Today we're going to be cooking another ingredient from your bag, which is frozen peas. So we're going to do a lovely little springtime dish using the peas. We're just going to let them defrost and then make a lovely little cheese broth out of some really good cheddar and some also another store cupboard ingredient, some dried white haricot beans. So the first stage of the recipe, we've got to take the dried white beans and soak them in cold water overnight in the refrigerator. We have to do that so that the beans cook evenly when we make the stock. We're just going to soak them in plain cold water, no salt because that'll bring them outside of the skins. So straight cold water into the beans. One thing to remember is when you soak the beans, always soak them in more water than you've got beans because the beans are going to absorb the water and then swell up. This needs to be done the day before we're going to make the cheese broth. So we're going to soak the beans, put them into the refrigerator overnight, and then the next day we can make the stock. So the next day after we've soaked the beans are going to look like this. So they've been sitting in cold water in the refrigerator overnight. We need to do that to soften the beans, make them swell up, so that when we cook them, they don't take 3 days to cook. These should only take about 45 minutes. So these are dried white haricot beans. You can use any type of beans, any dry beans you've got, but you have to use dried, you can't use tinned. You just need to soak them for 24 hours overnight. So now we're going to put the beans along with the vegetables and make a bean stock. We've got 500 grams of beans here, and that's going to give us a nice amount of finished broth. So after we've soaked the beans, then we're going to make the stock. So we take the beans, make sure you use a big enough pot because you're going to add water, the beans and the vegetables, and you're going to need enough space to be able to create the stock. So we're going to chop the veg. We've got one top of the leek, so if you've got a whole leek, you can use the white for something else and then save the tops for stocks and sauces. They're really handy. So we've got the green leek. We're not talking chefy fine here, we're just making a stock. Now everything can go into the pot with the beans. So just run your knife through. We're not trying to do it all fine. You can peel your carrot, I haven't, I don't think you need to. I think the skin has a lot of flavour. So in with the carrot. Going to put in one medium-sized cooking onion. Again, just chopping it into the same size pieces as the carrot and the leek. Definitely not too small. If we cut this too small, the vegetables can disintegrate and make it really cloudy. So all the vegetables are in. The only things we're going to hold back on is some thyme, garlic and some salt. The reason we're holding back on them is that when we've made the stock, we're going to add them at the end. We don't want these to break up, we're adding them for aromatic flavour at the end. Also with the salt, we're going to add that at the end because that can make the beans split from their skin and also make the stock really cloudy. So once we've got the vegetables, the beans, we're going to add the water. So we've added about 1.5 litres of water to this, to 500 grams of beans, one onion, a top of a green leek and a carrot. So now everything's in the pot. We've got the onion, the leek, the carrot, the beans, and then we're going to make the stock. This is going to take 45 minutes to cook. We're going to add some thyme, garlic and salt at the end, and that's going to be the bean stock finished. So let's get it on. Okay, so the bean stock has now been on for 45 minutes. The beans are tender, cooked, and they've released all of their flavour and starch into the liquid. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pour it into a tray. The reason we're doing this is we want to arrest the cooking. So we're trying to cool the beans down as fast as possible in the stock. The reason we're cooling the beans down like this quickly in the stock is so that it releases all of its flavour, starch and mouthfeel when we make the finished broth. Now we've poured the beans in to cool down, the last things we're going to add to the stock is clove of garlic, some thyme, and 10 grams of salt. So we've added them to the stock at the last minute. The reason we've done that, we want the aromatics from the thyme and the garlic, and the salt would have broken the skins on the beans, so we've added that last minute just to season the broth at the end. Now that the broth's cooled down, we're going to pass away the liquid, because that's all that we're looking for this recipe. So we're draining away the liquid from the beans and the vegetables. The vegetables and the beans are discarded for this recipe, but they are just cooked beans and cooked veg. You could definitely use them for something else. My tips are a sausage casserole with the beans and the veg. Saute some sausages, add some tomato sauce and roast that in the oven. Do not throw this away. This is a byproduct of making the cheese broth. After we've sieved away the liquid, we're left with the bean stock. The bean stock is what we're going to add the lovely cheddar to and blend in to make the broth. So the final stage of making the cheese broth, we've taken the bean stock, discarded the beans and vegetables, and we've put them aside for another dish. We've taken the bean stock liquid, that's a concentrated bean flavour. The reason I've chose to use this with the cheese is that the flavour of the cheese sings. It's not a meat stock, it's not a vegetable stock, it's a neutral base stock, what lets the cheese shine, and that's what we're trying to do to go with the frozen peas. We'll take a stick blender, we're going to bring the bean stock up to boil. What we're going to do is we're going to add 250 grams of the best cheese, cheddar we can find, we can afford. So we're going to add that cheddar to the bean stock. And we're just going to completely blend that in. Once we've blended the cheddar into the bean stock, that's the end of making the broth. So now the cheese broth's finished, we're going to leave that for around 2 to 4 hours and let the solid sink to the bottom and leave us with a nice cheese liquid on the top to use on the finished dish. Okay, now everything's ready for the cheese broth. We've got the star of the show, the frozen peas. We're not going to cook them, they don't need cooking. They're absolutely delicious. Just defrost them, make sure there's no ice left on them, and then we can pour the hot cheese broth over the top. That amount of heat that's in the broth is more than enough to cook through these peas. We're also going to garnish with some spring findings, which I've been picking from in and around Birmingham. So we've got wild garlic, we've got wild garlic flowers, because we're in the flower season at the moment. There's a small little window where we can use them, 1 to 2 weeks, where the seeds turn into flowers, the buds open, and then we can use the flowers. They have a beautiful little garlic taste. And then these ones, Oxeye daisies, we can use the petal from. They're like a bitter mustard kind of flavour. So we're going to chop a few of the leaves to go into the peas. So we're going to grab 2 leaves, separate the stem and the leaf. Roll the leaf up so it's easy to cut. Run your knife through. We'll do one more. So take the stem up. Roll the leaf like a cigar shape, and then cut along, not moving the food, just moving your fingers. So they're nice and cut nice and fine into strips. The stems, they're absolutely delicious as well, so don't forget about them, but chop them separately. So they have a really, really distinct garlic, spring oniony type taste. Succulent as well because it's a stem, so always use the stem. Same with a lot of herbs, coriander, parsley. They're all the stems are edible and just as valuable as the leaf. Sometimes hold more flavour as well. I'm going to take some of the garlic flowers and then just pick off the individual heads. So these are all going to add lovely little flavours to the end dish, the broth and the peas. So all of these plants grow around Birmingham. I forage them all in the wild myself. These garlic leaves, Oxeye daisies, the garlic flowers are off the same plant as the wild garlic. Normally you'll smell the wild garlic plant before you see it and smell an amazing big waft of garlic when you're walking around the woods. Normally grows near water as well. Oxeye daisies, they grow in and everywhere. You've probably seen them many times before. Only going to eat the petals this time, but you can eat the whole head, it is edible. I've foraged these in and around Birmingham, away from roads. Just make sure you got permission, but all of this free, delicious wild food is amazing and we use it a lot. So the last things to do now is plate it up. First thing I'm going to do is take the frozen peas, which is the start. Obviously you can use fresh peas as well when they're in season, but frozen peas are absolutely delicious. They're preserved in the right kind of way to preserve all their sweetness and flavour. I use them a lot myself in my cooking. This is a really good way of using them because they don't need any cooking. So we just defrosted them and then we put them into the bowl. Like I said, the residual heat from the broth is going to be more than enough to heat them through. We've got our garnishes at the ready, so we've got some wild garlic leaves, some wild garlic stems, some wild garlic flowers, and then we're going to pick some of the Oxeye daisy petals, pick them all up. We wash these in advance as well, so just give them a little rinse under cold water, exactly like you would your carrots and your potatoes. So we've got the hot cheese broth, that's off the stove now. So that's the bean stock with the best quality cheddar we could afford, put in, blended into the broth. We're going to pour that over the top of the peas. And then we're going to add our garnishes. So we're going to take some of the wild garlic, put some of those wild garlic leaves on there, so you're going to get like a nice fresh garlic flavour. Going to sprinkle some stems for some texture as well, some wild garlic flowers, and lastly some of the Oxeye daisy petals. This is a great dish to start off a dinner party menu. You could extend it in size and have it as a lunch, even have some bread with it, your favourite bread, and dip it into the broth. But actually, as part of a dinner party menu, you can really wow your guests or your family cooking this for them as a first course. So that's the finished dish. The last thing to do is a little bit of olive oil just to richen up the top there, give it a nice little mouthfeel, and that's the dish. So we've got our frozen peas, our cheddar cheese broth, and our spring findings, the plants that we found in and around Birmingham foraging.